Welcome everybody to the Neuromasters Show, where we uncover the transformative powers of the mind. I'm Reg Malhotra, your host, and I'm here to guide you with practical tools and inspiring stories grounded in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis. Now, whether you're a high achiever feeling stuck or a growth seeker looking to overcome setbacks, join us each week to break through barriers and achieve profound personal and professional growth. Let's dive in and unlock your potential.
Welcome to the Neuromasters podcast. We're grateful you're with us today. I'm with Reg, founder of Neuromasters Academy, and today we're diving into a topic that's on everyone's mind as the holiday season approaches: managing holiday stress. Join us as we discuss how we can stay balanced, set boundaries, and find joy amidst the holiday chaos. We'll also touch on how these techniques can improve our communication, relationships, mindset, and approach to parenting during this joyous but stressful time. Reg, thanks for being here. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
All right, so with the holidays, it brings a lot of joy, but also a significant amount of stress for many people. Why do you think that happens this time of the year? Often leads to heightened stress and tension, even though it's supposed to be a season of celebration.
Yeah, great question there, Kim. We talk about holidays, but really what we're talking about, people coming together. People doing things that they wouldn't do in the rest of the year. And one of those things that comes up at this time of the year is meeting family, right? Or spending time with work colleagues, or in a different setting, right, leading up to the holidays. So a lot of the year we're all doing our thing, and we are not spending time with certain family members, say part of the broader family. And what happens around this time of the year, as you know, is that people are planning to meet, whether it's a Thanksgiving dinner, whether it's traveling to location of family members, and depending on the nature of relationships people have, and we speak a lot here about relationships and how ultimately that's the source of great joy and also the source of great stress for a lot of people because things happen in our lives, and we either don't like certain people or we haven't gotten along with them, and we've just got to put on that happy mask and pretend like everything is okay. So I think a lot of the stress underneath that is, and that may not be very conscious for a lot of people, is people are about to meet certain people who they've spent the whole year either avoiding or not having to meet with.
Right.
And then you've got to put on this, in some cases, the mask and get on with it. So that's one reason. And the other reason, Kim, I would say is the idea of perfectionism. A lot of people want things to go perfectly, whether it's a dinner, whether it's a travel, and there could be so many other things that are waiting for us when we come back. And I think if you add all that up, it can lead to fear, conscious or unconscious. And really what stress is a fancy word for fear.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, Reg, because as you were talking, I was thinking about, myself and even for those of us who may not have those relationships that are, trivial, we'll say. I think there's also the expectation to perform this time of the year, especially for the family hosting, or even if we're not hosting, there's just that kind of expectation, that persona to you make sure everybody is taken care of and whatnot. And so I'm curious, are there any specific triggers or pressures unique to the holidays that can affect these types of relationships, whether it's parenting or otherwise? And then why do you also feel that maybe it's more challenging this time of the year?
Yeah, certainly there is unique triggers for sure this time of the year, or holidays in general, because we do things we don't do a lot of the year. And you see, human beings are very good at forgetting things. Like a year is a long time in a human being's life. So, during this time, say things didn't go well last year, say there were mistakes made, say things were not arranged well, say, there was some, conflict within the family. As we know, during Christmas, the number of, disputes or conflicts within families during the Christmas period, unfortunately, is the highest compared to any other time of the year. So that's all unique to this period because, like you said, you're expected to perform. There are ideas that people hold about you, and then you fear not holding that spot any longer, showing your mistakes, showing your vulnerabilities. So these are very unique. And then from a parenting point of view, you've got You got children at home, and you got to keep them busy, and to them, this period is so special, right? Depending on the age of the children, it's so special, and as parents, we all can carry this desire to not want to let them down. Right? We want to create the perfect life for them, the perfect Christmas, everything going perfectly, and added to the regular pressures that people already have to perform at their work, to perform in life in general, to get good results, relationships. Now you have this additional pressure of parenting, and then a lot of people could be caring for sick parents. Right? They could be missing out. Another unique trigger at this time of the year is when you have to miss out on something. When you're missing out, I think that adds to people's, many cases, people's unhappiness if they have to miss out. That could be because they cannot travel. It could be financial reasons. There could be reasons because you have to care for somebody. There could be work reasons. You see, this is not in every job, in every industry, can you just take this whole period off. Right? Hospitals have to continue. Emergency services have to continue. Food places have to continue. So, this is very unique to this time of the year that people feel like they're missing out, or that, they are, they're not really experiencing how life should be. Really, it could chunk up to that level.
Yeah, the fear of missing out, I think, is very, very real. And then you said something there too that kind of makes me think about societal expectations and just that general this time of the year of what it brings, right? So you have your own life. You don't want to miss out on anything, of course, but regardless of where your desires are, your beliefs are, there's still that underlying kind of pressure, I guess, from societal expectations. And I'm curious what your take on that is, especially this time of the year.
Yeah, the idea of societal expectations, really, it's so much bigger. It's everything we speak about in this academy, everything we help people with is, the belief systems, the values, the ideas, the behaviors that we adopt, in the process of growing up through external sources, whether it's family members, whether it's, teachers and media and so forth. And so societal expectations, it's definitely a catch-all term for how people think they need to be. And a lot of the work we do at this academy, as you know, is about helping people, reach their own decisions about who they are, deciding to live in their own values, letting go of things that are not serving them. And this is hard for people, right? Because we carry baggage, we carry, what we refer to as significant emotional events and those experiences in our nervous system. Now you add on top of that this period of the year where you've got to pretend that everything is good, right? And look, in a way, it's a really good time of the year because it requires you to reflect. I mean, you think about Thanksgiving, you have to go into a state of gratitude. I think it's wonderful. However, if we just do it as a band-aid thing, just for the sake of it, and not really mean it, and not really use this time to say, what am I willing to let go of? What are the ideas that are no longer helping me? What has happened in the past that I no longer want to hold on to? Because there are tools and processes that can help you let go of, but people got to make this decision. In fact, I would argue that this period of the year should serve as a trigger, a reminder to say, you know what? I have a great excuse now. I have a great reason to change my outcomes, to change what I'm experiencing inside, to let go of the past, to let go of the trauma, to let go, in many cases, of the people. That's not easy, I know, but this could be the time that we consider, are we holding on to certain people who are not respecting our boundaries, who are not allowing us to be who we want to be, who are always looking to have a relationship with who we used to be. We always say that here. A lot of people are trying to have a relationship with who you used to be. And we think about using nicknames this time of the year. You see, nothing wrong with nicknames. But if you're a 45-year-old person and you used to be called something when you were 5 years old, now you go into this family gathering and everyone refers to you as that nickname. Nothing initially problematic with that. But what is that nickname associated with? Because if they're calling it, say you made some silly mistakes when you were a child, say you were laughed at certain behaviors, we all do that with children, these things happen in families. Now you're a grown adult, now people are calling you that nickname. Who do you think they're seeing? Who do you think they're seeing when they're calling you? They're seeing you from 30, 40 years ago. They're not expecting, they don't want you to change, not because they don't like you, but because they want to know you're that same old person, and this is also an underlying reason for people getting super stressed, because now they're going to see people who know things about them, who have possibly looked down upon them. Even on the surface, everyone has to look that they're happy with each other.
Yeah, yeah, it's that expectation again. It's that expectation. You said something there that you said about, living our values. And I think that's so important that for us to really be true to ourselves, because if we're not true to ourselves and we're not taking care of ourselves, who is? And I think that's so real for any part of the year, right? Not just the holidays, but certainly this time of the year, it gives you the opportunity to reflect on that. And you said something else, another key word there, boundaries. So in my mind, I think about, our values, owning our values, and boundaries, and how the two are really connected, because it's through boundaries that we can preserve our values. And so in a recent episode, I know that you talked about setting boundaries to manage that seasonal stress. So, for listeners who might have missed it or would like to go deeper into that, could you share why boundaries are really key to navigating these holiday pressures and really just any pressure throughout the year?
Yes, we talk a lot about that. You're right, about boundaries. And through our work with thousands of people, one thing we realized is that majority of people uh, either don't have boundaries, and of course, as a result of that, they have no avenue to enforce boundaries, or that people have a misunderstanding of what boundaries mean. Now, I'll come back to boundaries are, but I want to talk about this holiday period again. In that, this could be a great time of the year where you utilize to check whether you have boundaries, and if you have, how are you communicating them? How are you demonstrating those boundaries? Because you're going to be spending time with a lot of people in this setting where you're expected to be nice about everything. And the question is not even about being nice or not. The question is about, do people even understand what your boundaries are? And in terms of what boundaries are, well, how far are people able to go? How far, how much are you aware of what is too much for you? What is acceptable to you, right? And let's take time as an example. We always talk about that. We all should have boundaries when it comes to time, right? This is extremely important. A lot of people that we worked with, we found that, people don't respect their time. And it'll show up in small things, like if they're on a phone call, or if they decide to go somewhere to do something, or if they want to talk, if they want to meet with them. There is not that respect for, hey, look, we agreed to 60 minutes, and now we're 2.5 hours, we're still here, right? And you feel bad as a person to tell them that you have to get somewhere, or that's all the time you have. We may do this in professional settings, but we really struggle with this in personal settings. That's an example of boundaries. Other areas of boundaries could be how you want a person to treat you. I'll give you an example for me. I knew a bunch of people who would just, every time they got together, 99% of the time, or at least 90% plus of the time, the conversation was always about other people, judging other people, laughing at other people, talking negatively about other people, and it used to make me cringe. But I did nothing about it until one day I did. You know what I did? I would just walk away from that setting. I wouldn't take part in it. And I often try, in episode 3, I think, we go into a 3-step process of, we talk about the idea that we train people how to treat us. We train people, consciously, unconsciously, we
Right.
train people how to treat it. So one day we wake up because we've done a bit of personal development, a bit of spiritual growth, and we're like, I'm not taking this anymore. And then we turn around and say, you're not speaking to me like that anymore. Now, here's what we say. If the relationship is important to you, if you want the relationship to stay, then you've got to do it in steps. Number one, start the process of gradually untraining. By doing certain things that implies to the other person that you're not willing to partake in that. And then there is a process of retraining them. That's only if the relationship is important to you. Because if you come around and suddenly say, yeah, you're not doing this anymore, this is who I am now, you could obviously break the relationship altogether. So you got to think through this. And that's what I would say during this period of the year. It's really a time for us to check. If you haven't had boundaries, it's a time to start that process, gradual untraining process of behaviors that you've permitted till now. And then test also, are people respecting your boundaries in how they communicate with you, in how they treat you, in what they ask you to do, right? During this period of the time, people ask each other, hey, can you bring the dessert? Can you do this? Can you do that? And if you're feeling obliged, even though you don't have for one reason or another, you're not able to, how are you communicating that? What is your current relationship? You can see how that can be a huge source of triggers for people. And a lot of the work we do here with hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming and neurohacking, ultimately is designed to empower people to be able to take control of their life, to be able to produce behaviors even at the risk that other people may not necessarily want you to do that. There is no other way of stepping into your full self, or for that matter, actualizing your values. What are your values? What's important to you? The more you breach your values, none of these relationships will actually matter, because your most important relationship is with you. If you're breaching your values over and over and over again, eventually you're going to break your relationships, and in the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something that you said there that stood out to me too. And it sounds like with boundaries, it could present a lot of discomfort, right? Discomfort in you taking radical responsibility and setting your own boundaries, really being honest with yourself with, you gave the example of time, being honest with yourself, because I think valuing your own time too is so important, which really could be a topic for another day, really. But then also the discomfort of making the other person uncomfortable. 'Cause it echoes exactly what you said.
We train people how to treat us. We just sometimes we don't know it, but we are. Over a period of time, we train people.
Yeah, and so it can really be uncomfortable because we realize that we're making them uncomfortable by setting the boundary. So it creates discomfort in them, and then it creates kind of some discomfort in us too. And I think that that can lead also to some miscommunication, or even just discomfort in saying no, right? To family, to friends, because we worry about how we're going to make them feel. So there's just so much discomfort there. And I wonder what advice you would offer for someone. How do they balance self-care with these expectations, and especially that discomfort that just comes around owning your values?
That's a great question. And I think family is a very unique set of circumstances, yet common, in that almost everybody experiences some stress, some friction, some, I'm going to use this word, unwantingness of things, but not knowing how to deal with them. I think the balancing of your personal values, your personal, choices with expectations of your family members is a process that is possible. It is definitely doable. So we're going to start first with the belief and the decision to respect. First, identify what's important to you, which is also called personal values. Know if there is a gap in whether you're actualizing them. Know who you are at your core. So take a good stock of who you are, what makes you happy, and what makes you uneasy, and super uneasy for that matter. Then you need to make the decision. You got to start. You got to start. If a situation has gone on for too long and it has not been helping you, eventually it's going to harm your health. The amount of people we met who are in bad health, mental or physical, but really a result of poor relationships. So what's there to really lose, right? So got to make a decision. Listen, I am going to start the process of directly or indirectly communicating when I am not happy with something, or I don't want to take part in something. And by the way, moment people think of this, they think you've got to be stern and rude and aggressive and a certain, no, there are very gentle ways of communicating. This is why we say one of the greatest skills to learn is actually the art of communication. If only, we say that in our field, only 7% of communication is words. Only 7%. So how is it that, how do people really know, have people really learn how to communicate? All problems are communication problems, which presupposes that all solutions can, to some degree, be communication based. So I think in terms of your question, balancing, we've got to make the decision and then start slow. If the relationships are important to you, which in family there are, closer family at least, right? Because if you damage the relationships, the family in any case will make you unhappy for long periods of time, right? There could be regret, there could be guilt. So it's really important to start the process as a gradual process. You really have to be a scientist. Maybe you were taking part in a certain behavior in the past. You know what they say, if you don't object to a behavior, then you take part in it, right? If someone is hurting somebody and you don't say anything, then in fact you're part of the crime, right? So you're going to have to decide to do something about what you've been tolerating, what you've been accepting. Start small, start slow, but then do it again repeatedly. And people are smarter than we give them credit for. People get the message. And it's possible people may raise that with you, and that's an opportunity for you to, healthily communicate. Now, one other very, very important point in this, heading into this period, and to the point that you asked earlier about balancing these things, is not a lot of our triggers are from the present time, right? We've had so many family events, we've had so many family issues, or we've had relationship issues in general. This is the time to really think about how much baggage are you carrying from the past. A lot of blow-ups that happen at Christmas and Thanksgiving and these kind of things is not really because of what happened on, say, the occasion this time around, but it could be a culmination of what has happened in the past. Now you're sitting there putting your guard on, right? Worrying and fearing if something like that could happen again, and so you're not really present, and the whole thing can blow up for that reason, because it could be anger from the past, it could be hurt from the past. That's why it's so important, we say in our academy, clean up your past, reset the emotions on the events, because you want to start from a clean place, especially if you're going to go down the road of having and enforcing boundaries.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing too, Reg, is the communication aspect is very much a practice.
Yes.
And it's not only waiting for that point of contention where, oh, we have to have this very uncomfortable conversation now. It's a practice of using your voice and communicating respectfully in a very kind way, but also being, pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Assertive with what it is that you're looking for. And so it sounds like communication is really just, it's a necessity for healthy relationships, for the health of a relationship. Is that?
You're spot on.
Yeah,
Communication is a practice. It's a What's the alternative?
exactly.
We go to school and we learn English, or we learn vocabulary and grammar, and we call it communication. Communication is the art of influencing others. That's what it is. And you don't just learn to influence others once. You have varied amounts of relationships. I don't think there's anybody in the world doing great things, whether personally or professionally, who's not a great communicator. Now, sure, there are other things that don't require a lot of communication, like artistry and so forth. But even then, to get opportunities, you got to be I think anything short of being a master communicator is a mistake. And communication is about knowing, let me put it another way, what is happening in the other person as you speak. Because all of your words do impact what happens inside another person. You see, something you say could leave a person feeling suicidal for the rest of their life. I know that was the case for me. You know why? Because what people say to you about you can run like a repeating loop tape in your mind. Even your parents' voice when you were a child becomes your inner voice when you're an adult, unless you become conscious of this. This is all communication. Even saying certain, beating yourself up, hating yourself, these are acts of negative self-communication. This is what we teach here, and we go on and on and on in the academy. Even the techniques that we teach that involve, resetting your past, letting go of limiting beliefs, actually involves specific communication processes using specific language patterns that impact your own subconscious mind, your own mind, to move into a new direction.
So it's energy. That's where it's really what I want to say here is, and that's how I'm perceiving it. But I'm curious your thoughts around it, because energy is magnetic, right? So someone can walk into a room and you can feel their energy as they walk in, depending on what they're walking in with. It's the same thing with communication. So you just said, you can say something to someone that can really leave a lasting impact for them. And I would say too, there's a lot of energy, right? There's energy in how we're feeling, and there's energy behind the words. Not only the words we're saying, but the meaning that we're putting behind it. And you mentioned the self-talk too, and the negative self-talk. And I think that has a lot to do with energy as well. And I'm just curious your thoughts around that, and how managing your energy can play a role too around the holidays.
Yeah, you say energy, the word we use is intention. So intention is effectively the energy that moves over. So if you really mean something, if you really want to encourage somebody, and if you really mean it because you're excited about this person, you love what they're doing, and the way you deliver it will be received energetically in a very different format. Right? You may have heard of this experiment that a Japanese scientist did, where put rice into a glass of water and a few different glasses, and with one of them put him in a room, put the glass in a room, and then went and every day spoke expletives, as in negative words, swear words, and eventually after a few days the water went black. And in another room they left the same amount of rice in the water from the same source and spoke with terms of gratitude, with love and compassion and peace, and that water did not change in color. I mean, how do you explain that? How do you explain that other than with energy and intention? And a lot of what we teach is this idea of internal representations, that a word, I spoke earlier about the fact that something you say to a person could leave them feeling negative about themselves, it could make them feeling suicidal. At the same time, something you say to a person could be the single reason that they have succeeded and created a magnificent life. How many people have you heard who said, my uncle said this, my dad said this, and those words always remain true for me? This is crucial. And we are just communicating without any due respect for what it might do to a person. So a lot of work we do here, as you know, is we are training people how to be coaches for themselves, how to be leaders, and how to be life coaches and business coaches and executive coaches. The reality is you cannot coach nobody to success if you don't know the impact your words are having on them.
Yeah. And where words are so powerful too, Reg, like you said, it can work both ways, right? It can have an impact in one way or another. And I'm just curious, taking it back to the holidays, it really is a time of, we get pulled in a lot of different directions around this time of the year, with gatherings, with social events and work parties. And sometimes, we might feel pulled in a direction that goes against, going back to those boundaries, right? So we are prioritizing others' well-being before we prioritize our own. And where there is so much power behind our words, how, without letting others down, and especially when we want to really manage those relationships, right? How can we navigate that?
This is a fabulous point. Let's get even more practical. It's one thing to say, have your values, enforce your boundaries, communicate those boundaries. In reality, what also happens to people is that people are expected to behave a certain way. People are expected to be in certain settings that are not necessarily of their absolute choosing. Right? So we want to get super practical with this, whether it's a work setting, whether it's a family setting, whether it's a church setting, I don't know, wherever people get involved. I think the key is preparation. Key is not fooling yourself. Know that as you get into this season, as you get into different social settings, you also want to be adaptable and flexible. Right? It's one thing to say, I have my boundaries, I have my values, now, screw the world, screw everybody else and doesn't respect it. But what comes along with that is the ability to remain flexible, to be adaptable. So you prepare in advance, know that certain words could be said, certain remarks could be made. You want to prepare in advance. What is your decision about how you're going to allow yourself to react? Think it through. Visualize you. Here's a technique. Imagine a situation that wouldn't be to your liking and create a response in your mind of how you choose to react. In fact, I would use the word respond instead of react. Run it at least 2 to 3 times in your mind. You see, the brain doesn't know the difference in real and imagine. If you're going to be in settings that you have no choice of getting out of and things happen in there, run it in your mind. See yourself as someone who comes out smiling. Look through your own eyes. So in your mind, do this practice, visualize, look through your own eyes. This is called associating. See the people who would normally be in front of you, see what could go wrong first, and then notice yourself responding differently to what you may have in the past. Dial this in. Give your brain a reference. That's the first point. So that's preparation. The second point is, in general, have a decision to be flexible and adaptive. See, people are too fixed in their ways. People have this deep, innate desire to be right. And some people will live their entire life to be right. Now, where does it show up more than in families? You know why? Because there are 4 words that run deep within all of us, especially when it comes to families. I told you so. People are running their lives within families not ever needing to hear someone saying them, I told you so. Don't get into that relationship. I told you so. Don't start that business. I told you so. And so because in our family people care about us and they worry that we may end up in a negative place or a wrong place, a lot of times people can give each other advice, don't do this because they have our own opinions, or don't move cities, don't do this. And let's say you still make your own decision and things go wrong as per what they thought could happen. Now the dynamic of the whole relationship changes because this other person is thinking, I told you so, and you're fearing. It's a very deep, just so you know, it's a very deep fear people have to be told, I told you so. It is deep in the human psyche, right? So I think, want to come back to that point about being flexible and adaptive. Think strategically. Your decision to, this is why we say work on yourself, work on your past, remove your limiting beliefs, reset your unconscious mind, create a clean slate so that you're not the victim of this. You're not at effect. We cannot live our life at effect all the time. What could happen? You decide how you're going to respond. Choose to respond, not react, in the same way that choose to design your life, not just have it happen.
I love that. Choose how you respond. I feel like that goes back to similar to what we were just talking about, right? The intention, as you said. I say energy, you say intention. I feel it's being intentional with how you respond to situations. And I'm curious too, because that, it has a lot to do with what you were saying to the adaptability, and being flexible. And so where this time of the year too is really a busy time of year, whether it's in your personal life, of course, again, going back to meeting those social expectations and what society has, placed on for expectations as well with traditions and whatnot. But it's also a busy time at work. So how can listeners manage the pressure? How can they react in such a way where they can be flexible and adaptable, but manage the pressure that this time of the year has on them, and especially around the holiday celebrations and the family connections?
Yeah, so this is the broader point around balancing your obligations and your duties and your responsibilities, right, in life. So if it comes to when it comes to pressures with work and family, yes, sure, this time of the year you're expected to perform in personal circles, right? You got to people travel a lot. There is idea of the holidays going perfectly, especially when you're traveling to different locations. I think when it comes to work, again, it's or handling the pressure, or handling I would use the word responsibilities. You see, I think one of the things that move people faster in life, and this is a very important point that I've made to a lot of people, is people have a lot of fear of responsibility. Right? We must, if you're on the path of personal growth, if you're on the path of improvement, if you're on the path to becoming higher versions of ourselves, getting more out of ourselves, then we must not shirk away from responsibility. I'm not saying take the responsibility for all of the things, but the more you're willing to move into positions of responsibility, the more rewards await you. Of course, it comes with challenges. But see, most of the people are spending more of their time trying to get away from responsibility. Now, I was speaking to one of our students one day, and I said to her, she was troubled by the idea that she has to help her parents, right, because they were moving countries, and she has to take certain responsibility for them now. And I had this wonderful conversation with her where I advised her. I said, look, this is the opportunity for you to not run away from it, to go into it, take that responsibility, because you'll be the leader in your family, right? And you, once you take responsibility, you have a greater ability to have and enforce boundaries. People don't think this way. People will do anything to move away from responsibility. And by the way, the more responsibility you're willing to take, the more eventually you're going to earn. Not just in terms of money, not just in terms of fulfillment, not just in terms of relationships, but everything. And see, we must move into, and it's the same at this time of the year, is not a period where you want to retreat. Say to yourself that I can handle anything. Say to yourself that this will help me grow. If you're on the path of improvement, you have a choice. I mean, we all have. How do you explain a person who is running a company with 10,000 people and has children at home? And look, I used to work with a lady who was a director on a board. She was the principal of a law firm. She had, I think, something like 7 or 8 horses. She used to play guitar. She and she was on, I think, 3 or 4 other non-profit boards while having a full-time job. I mean, what is this person saying to themselves about responsibility? So I know that wasn't exactly the question, but the reality is I want to tie people into this. Use this period to prove to yourself, I would say prove to yourself that you can handle everything. In those moments when that little voice comes in and saying, oh, I'm so tired and there's so much to do, you see, this is where words lead to feeling. You want to become aware of what you're saying to yourself and treat it like a limiting belief. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. We teach our students to treat these things as limiting decisions. In other words, you made a decision somewhere that this kind of situation is tough. When did you decide that? Think about the first time you decided that and disconnect the emotion. And there are techniques to help with this. But the point I'm making is, if you know you've got to do something, you know you've got to deliver on it, what's the alternative? Build yourself up. Create powerful words. Of course, look after yourself. Take care, take adequate rest. But then walk into it and become a person who learns from this period of the year, from the additional responsibilities on work and personal, so that you build up the neurology. You see, once you've done, when you've, you know what they say, when you've gone through tough experiences, you build up your muscle. That's what I would remind people of here.
Yeah, no, you do. You do. It's definitely, I feel like it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's a practice, right? And the more you put things into practice, the more you build that muscle. And I feel like our mindset is such a huge muscle, I would say. I know I'm not necessarily explaining it correctly, but the way I'm thinking of it is it's one of those things to put into practice, right? When those, because you said it, we have a choice. We all have a choice. Of course we do. But, am I choosing lemons or oranges today? And what my brain does to help me make that decision? Like, how do you navigate the resistance, right? So I'm curious, Reg, you said there are techniques. So what techniques can you help our listeners with their mindset around the holiday stress, and then how can these techniques can also be applied in real-time situations handling family or relationship dynamics?
Yeah, so one of the basic techniques, and I alluded on that earlier, is practices of visualizations. So if you're not becoming conscious of how you want things to go, unconsciously your mind's going to run stories, words, pictures of things going wrong. You see, anxiety is a sign from your subconscious mind to focus on what you want. So, you want to think about, here's a technique I would recommend. Obviously some of the techniques require work with the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind, and they need to be done under supervision. But a very basic technique that people can start the process is write down, bring it out of your head what you're worried about. Write it down on a piece of paper. What is the worst case scenario that you're running in your head? Now, write down the best case scenario. Make sure you follow it in this order. Write down the worst case scenario. Say, example, in the holiday season. What is your mind thinking could go wrong? You need to bring it out of your mind onto a piece of paper, because the longer it sits in there, the heavier it gets. Write it down. Second one, the best case scenario. Allow your mind to go, well, things could go great, everything could work out, the holiday could happen fine, work responsibilities could be handled. Write it down specifically. And then write down the most likely scenario and watch what happens. Now you get all of that out of your mind. And then you realize that most of these problems we build in our mind. Then the second part of this exercise is, if there's something you're specifically worried about, again, take out a piece of paper, make sure you write these things down. Neuromotor association, the act of writing. Right? So write down what you're worried about, and write down what am I worried about, and write down, is it really true? Or is it a result of something that happened in the past? And then write down what happened in the past in short form, high-level summaries, and then check that what you're experiencing now is not just a result, for example, of what happened in the past, and maybe that's what's worrying you of things going wrong again. And then come back to the visualization techniques I discussed earlier. Imagine things going well. Put yourself in your body, in your mind, look through your own eyes, see them, and run it multiple times until your brain knows the picture really well.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great exercise to walk through. I love the practice of visualization. And I'm curious, Reg, as you know, just to kind of bring this conversation full circle, as we know too, I mean, the time of year, yes, it can be stressful, of course, but the holidays are also meant to be a time of joy and connection. And would you say that this same practice of visualization can be used to help us stay present and really enjoy the season despite the pressures that are put on us?
Look, staying present, and you're spot on, and enjoying this season for what it is. We've spoken a lot about how to deal with matters, but in terms of really, this is the time to enjoy. It's the time to be present, like you said. You want to be present, and you want to create memories. So again, first decide. Decide this is going to be a period for you. This is going to help you grow. It's going to help you relax. It's going to help you enjoy. To make that decision now. Don't wait for someone to make it for you. Number two is, use some of what we've discussed in this episode so that, around boundaries, around values, become clear about who you are. And as you step into this period, choose deliberate acts where you have compassion, where you have a laugh, where you don't take things so seriously, where you forgive and forget. This is the time to do it, where you choose to see the good in others in spite of what they're showing, right? And of course, you can visualize things working out well, that you're having a laugh, that you're having, there's the techniques we teach called anchoring, where you can recall. So this is not exactly visualization, but this is a way of what we say in our field, managing your states. You see, all behaviors are state dependent. What is your state? If you really want to know what states can do, is go to the supermarket hungry. I think you're going to buy 4 or 5 times more than you need. Or you may have heard of the state called hangry. You see, these are not the states in which you want to make big decisions. These are not the states in which you want to, have an important conversation with your partner. Why? Because you're in a negative state, and states come and go. So as you step into this holiday season, you want to know how you can stay in strong, positive states. I'm not talking about just positive thinking. This is taking in charge of your state. First, identify what state are you in, and don't react. If you know you're in a negative state, that's the time for you to walk out of the situation. Take a deep breath. Go for a walk. Do anything that you enjoy so that you come back into a neutral or positive state. The other technique what people should do is, before you go into a very important gathering, go back and think of a time, go right back to a time in your life where things went really well in a similar setting. Step into your body, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and really feel those feelings all over again. You see, those experiences, they're yours. Unfortunately, because most people don't do this deliberately, the brain keeps accessing negative moments from the past. You see, brain's job is to help you survive. So it's trying to put a shield, a guard. But if you become intentional, when was the time when things went really well? Go back, see the whole event playing out, and until you feel those feelings all over again. You see, the brain doesn't know the difference in real and imagine. So if you think about something that happened in the past, the brain thinks it's happening all over again. You know it, right? You know that time when you talk about you went with friends to a movie, and even when you're talking, you're reliving it. So you can relive, and now that puts you in a positive state. Even if you're in a family setting or a work setting, choose to momentarily go into a time things going well to change your state. The other way to change your state is move your body. Get up, do something, put on a song, or go for a quick walk. You change your state. And when your state changes, your behavior changes. When your behavior changes, the result changes. One of the most critical things that we teach people through our work, through our techniques, is take complete control of people's states, their own states. Because if you don't have any control of your state, then your states own you, because they just happen. This is not what we're taught at school, but I'm telling you as a living example here, 90% of my results in my life, more than 90%, have come as a result of me having practicing and knowing the techniques and taking complete control and saying I'm going to be responsible for my state. Does that mean I don't get into negative state? No. But when I'm in a negative state, am I aware? Yes. And do I stay there too long? No.
Yeah, there's such power in bringing the mind with the body. I love what you said there, really bringing it back to the body. So the power, even what you were talking about, like the visualization, yes, not just visualizing it, but really embodying it too, putting yourself back there so you can experience all of those feelings from that time again.
But think about it.
Yeah.
All these very powerful moments you recall, your body, your brain doesn't, here's the thing, brain doesn't know the difference in past and future either. You don't really. So it thinks it's happening all over again. And we don't understand, a lot of people don't understand the power of that. This is called putting yourself back. And you see, a lot of athletes are trained to do these things. Imagine if an Olympic athlete, before going on the track, only thought about the times that they didn't succeed. They're gone. You cannot, we talk all the time about your mind, your mind-body connection. This is more real than anything. The high performers, they know this stuff. Their mental coaches teach them this. They consistently practice, meditate, visualize their moments of success, and they take those states. Usain Bolt did not stand there thinking about the one time that he didn't win. Every single time he was in a positive state, a state of winning. Go into this holiday season with a winner state, and you will influence everybody. Be an influencer. Be a leader. My recommendation to people is most families lack good leadership. If you can lead yourself by taking responsibility for these things that we've shared here today, you will then be a leader in your family. And if you can lead your family, you can lead strangers. If you cannot lead yourself, you'll never be able to lead your family. If you cannot lead your family, forget about leading strangers.
Yeah, be the leader, and I would say even, be a leader of yourself too. Be your own leader, right? Start with self-leadership.
Starts with self-leadership. Leadership, let me give you an example. Self-leadership is taking accountability for yourself, taking accountability for your states, taking responsibility for your communication. These are all signs of self-leadership. Having self-control. You're going to get opportunities to eat a few too many cakes. Sure, go ahead and enjoy them. But if you made a decision at the start of the year that you're going to take responsibility for your energy, for your health, for your weight, then you want to know what your limits are and live with the consequence of not eating that extra cake. Have some, enjoy some, but don't go against yourself.
Yeah.
This requires self-leadership.
Don't go against yourself. Yes. Reg, this has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you for sharing these valuable insights on how we can all navigate the holiday season with a bit more calm and a lot more joy, right? Balancing the two. It's clear that setting boundaries, finding the balance, as we say, and staying present can make a world of difference, especially when it comes to our relationships and family dynamics. For those of you listening, remember that the tools Reg shared today, from NLP techniques to practicing emotional clarity, they're here to support you in creating a holiday season that feels aligned with your values. So go ahead, set those boundaries, cherish your moments, and make this holiday season a time of genuine connection and peace. Thank you again, Reg, and thank you for all of you joining us here on the Neuromasters podcast.
It's been great. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Neuromasters show. I'm Reg Malhotra, reminding you that your trauma is seen, your transformation is possible, and your breakthrough is right around the corner. If you found today's episode valuable, you can visit our website for many more resources, to register for a live breakthrough experience, and to continue your journey of reclaiming your full self.